Just before this BBC podcast gets underway, here's something you may not know. My name's Linda Davies, and I commission podcasts for BBC Sounds. As you'd expect, at the BBC we make podcasts of the very highest quality, featuring the most knowledgeable experts and genuinely engaging voices. What you may not know is that the BBC makes podcasts about all kinds of things, like pop stars, poltergeists, cricket, and conspiracy theories, and that's just a few examples. If you'd like to discover something a little bit unexpected, find your next podcast over at BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, your indispensable guide to all the stories that matter in the national game. It's Tuesday the 16th of April. I'm Amy Canavan and here's what's coming up.
For now, that's his season over, that's his chance to go to the Euros over, and to be honest, it's just really devastating timing for the guy.
With the Euros on the horizon, we hear the latest from Italy as it's confirmed Lewis Ferguson requires knee surgery. Sticking with the national team,
Brooks back inside. Shay Adams has his third goal against Watford this season, and it was an absolute present from Watford.
Can Scotland benefit from Southampton's success? And you can't escape it, I'm afraid.
Get rid of her. Get rid of it, honestly.
We'll very briefly, I promise, discuss how VAR could be improved.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Well, there's plenty to get through this morning. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the Times Scottish football correspondent Michael Grant, Scottish journalist based in Rome, Alistair Mackenzie, and the host of BBC's Saints and Sinners Southampton Football Club podcast, Tom Deacon. There is so much to get through with Michael, Alistair and Tom, but first let's scoot through the latest Scottish football headlines. Lewis Ferguson says he's devastated after Bologna confirmed that the Scotland midfielder will require surgery on a cruciate ligament injury. It puts his hopes of featuring at Euro 2024 in serious doubt. Potentially more bad news for the national team as Nathan Patterson limped off towards the end of Everton's 6-0 drubbing at Chelsea. The 22-year-old right-back had come on at half-time but couldn't finish the game. With a pitch inspection due to take place this morning, we'll find out later today where Dundee's Scottish Premiership game against Rangers will be played. The SPFL have confirmed it'll be held at St Johnstone's McDiarmid Park tomorrow if it cannot go ahead at Dens. And the SFA have said they expect Scotland's new head of refereeing to improve the use of VAR and deliver the highest standards of officiating. Crawford Allen's replacement is expected to be in place for the start of the new season. Right then, let's start out in Italy then. Nobody wants to be talking about VAR. Alistair, good morning to you. In case anyone was living under a rock yesterday, what's the latest on Lewis Ferguson?
Well, Bologna released a statement last night saying that he has ruptured his cruciate ligaments and that is expected to keep him out for about 6 months, more or less. Which was a bit of a surprise considering that when he was first injured, he actually continued playing for a few minutes. So to begin with, Lewis himself and the club and the fans were hoping at least that it wasn't going to be quite as serious an injury as it is. But for now, that's his season over. That's his chance to go to the Euros over. And to be honest, it's just really devastating timing for the guy considering how incredible the season he's just had.
You mentioned there that it's been an incredible season, and I think many now are at least coming to light of that, but just paint a picture of just how good a season Bologna are having as they're going for their pursuit of Champions League, finishing as high as they possibly can in Serie A, but how pivotal Lewis Ferguson has been to that as well, because not only is he the captain, he has all the qualities of that captain, doesn't he? It's not just the fact of wearing the armband.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to put it into context, firstly, Bologna have never qualified for the Champions League before, so for them to be where they are is already fairly miraculous in itself, ahead of much better funded teams and bigger names than in Serie A. They've been playing really good football too, but Ferguson has been completely at the heart of that. He's played every single game so far this season. He's started every single game so far this season. Like you mentioned, the captaincy, that was something he picked up as the season went on. It became clear what his leadership qualities were like. he's really the all-round package because he's offering that leadership role, but he has been covering a lot of distance. I think he's still the second most on average of any player in Serie A. He's been scoring a few goals. I think he's got 6 now this season. He's been creating goals. So really, he's been doing absolutely everything. And Thiago Motta, his coach, has really got down as one of his go-to guys. So for Bologna, it is a really devastating blow for them because it's not a squad with huge depth, and he is considered one of their absolute key players, someone who has attracted interest from Juventus that's been talked about quite a lot recently, but lots of big clubs in Italy are supposed to be looking at him as well. So that's the double-edged sword with this. Is not only the fact that his season's over, but obviously that puts a lot of doubt into what the future holds for Ferguson, if that kind of move will actually happen for him this summer.
Yeah, the timing really couldn't be any worse for him, could it? It's been exciting from home, sort of listening to the clubs that Lewis Ferguson has been linked to, and they've not been stabbed in the dark, have they? There has been obviously speculation, but it's been serious speculation. He really could go on to one of the top sides in Italy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's merited for all the reasons I've just said. I mean, I think if you're looking for standout stars from this season in the entire league, I mean, Bologna is the team that most people are going to be looking at. It's not a team that's filled with superstar players, but if you're going to pick out the key men within that side, Ferguson is certainly one of them. And it's no real surprise to see him being linked to the big teams in Italy. The question, I guess, now is, you know, if he stays at Bologna, he's a hugely popular character there too, and it's not exactly disappointing if he does end up staying there, because if they can see this through and get into the Champions League and he can captain this club into their first ever Champions League campaign, Bologna is worth mentioning. They're not a small club. They've won multiple Serie A titles. They're a very historic club. So it would be an incredible thing to be a part of as well. But I think the other part, obviously, for Ferguson is his missing the Euros, which is such an important goal for him. Obviously, very competitive area in the Scotland squad, but somewhere where he could have been really useful because hugely versatile player. He can play at Bologna, and he's played as a number 10 in central midfield. He's even been out on the wing or as a false 9 at times. So he's really a kind of Swiss Army knife of a footballer who could have been incredibly useful for Steve Clarke. So that's also another really, really disappointing part of this is the international implications.
Alistair mentions it there, Michael, that, you know, there's been all that speculation and all the growing speculation still where Lewis Ferguson could perhaps end up beyond this summer, and that's the real cruel timing of this injury. But just turning it into a Scotland perspective, just how big a blow is this for Scotland? I know Lewis Ferguson's not a starter, but Steve Clarke's a very, very loyal man. He is always in the squad. You can sort of guarantee he's going to be in or would have been in the Euro squad. So how big a blow is this for the national team?
It's a real blow, Amy. You're right that he probably wouldn't start in Scotland's strongest team certainly for the opening game against Germany. But you know how tournaments evolve. You know, players can come into a side and be starting it by the end of a group campaign, having not done so at the beginning. Clarke likes him. All his caps have come under Clarke. And I think it's a real blow for Ferguson and it is for the country as well. You know, I was looking at it. Clarke's been a manager for 5 years and 53 games. He's only actually played 15 midfielders stroke wingers, right? So he's got 8 that we could all name that are absolutely cast iron certainties to go to Germany. McGinn, McGregor, McTominay, Gilmore, Christie, Armstrong, Kenny McLean, and Ferguson would have been the 8th. So then you're into kind of guessing, right? Who else does he look at? And it's really thin, because between players that are injured or not getting enough game time at their team or have retired or have fallen out of favour, that covers a lot of the rest of the 7. And to be honest, I think if you're probably, I'm getting ahead of myself here because you're probably going to ask me who does he bring in. I think the only 2 real candidates that I can think of are Ryan Jack, who isn't playing enough games for Rangers, or David Turnbull, who is coming on and off the bench at Cardiff, but is probably the candidate that I think he would go for. We don't know, obviously, if it's going to be 26 or 23 players in the squad so far, but yeah, to go back, I mean, it's a real blow for Ferguson because of his age and because Scotland don't get to every tournament. We know that. We don't qualify for everyone. And the one other side effect of it all, and Alistair mentioned it about the potential spanner of the works for a Juventus move, is that Aberdeen were kind of counting on Ferguson moving this summer because they've got a big sell-on clause, and they were anticipating hopefully £4 or £5 million. Now that is now up in the air because of his injury. I mean, the deal could still happen, but you do wonder now.
Well, another injury came to light last night, Michael. Potentially more bad news with Nathan Patterson hobbling off. He's not had an awful lot of luck of late, has he? This right wing back area now could also be becoming a little bit of a problem area with Aaron Hickey still out as well.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Clarke and the SFA, they kind of bargain for losing 2 players from a squad. That's the average that we've seen across all countries and in previous tournaments. You average about 2 players that you would like to take that you can't. We're getting worryingly above 2, I mean, if Ferguson's out, big doubts about Aaron Hickey, doubts about Grant Hanley, now doubts about Nathan Patterson, Jacob Brown, even the cover striker. So we're beginning to kind of thin out, and you're right, Amy, that right back is a problem area. It's a problem area without Hickey. Patterson is probably a more exciting attacking player than Hickey, but I don't think he's as good an all-round footballer and defender. But for both of them to be out, it becomes a real problem. I mean, Anthony Ralston, I guess, is the next in line at right back. Anthony wouldn't be in anybody's first 2 picks, I don't think. But you've got to go with what you have, and we're just getting into that period now, aren't we, where you just don't know where the next injury might be. I mean, that Ferguson one has come out of the blue. And we just need to keep our fingers crossed about the other key players, because we need our key players there. We don't have enough depth beyond the starting 11 to be able to take too many of these hits.
Absolutely, Michael. Well, Alistair Mackenzie, it's always a pleasure to check in with you, and Ron here's hoping that the next check-in is of better light and in better circumstances. But for now, thank you very much for your time. Right, as we were discussing, those injuries could open up an opportunity for someone else for Scotland. And in the run-up to the Euros, we've been regularly checking in on some of the players in and around Steve Clarke's squad. Today, Tom is here to help us run the rule over Southampton's Scottish contingent. First up, Tom, what sort of form are Southampton in under former Scotland defender Russell Martin? Every time I look into the English Championship, I do just get the feeling that nobody wants to win that division.
It's definitely one way to see out a championship. There's 4 teams vying to go up into the Premier League pretty much, and I'm discrediting 2 other teams in the playoffs, but basically, it's going to really come down to the wire. Russell Martin's been a revelation at Southampton, and he's brought his positivity. Maybe Scotland as a national team, maybe Steve Clarke could get him on board. Maybe there's a ticket for him, just to add a bit of good vibes. I mean, the way Michael and Alistair were talking about the fact you've got players out, it's not looking promising. Although I believe, and I can't believe you didn't ask me about my one time seeing Scotland, the national team at Hampden Park.
Tom, what was the one time that you seen Scotland at Hampden Park?
Oh, Amy, it's funny you should ask, actually. It was 2017. Gordon Strachan was the manager. It was a World Cup qualifier, Hampden Park, 2-0. I was there amongst the Tartan Army, absolutely loving life. And I think if they can take that positivity, remember some of those big wins, they'll be absolutely fine in June. And if we could take on the 2023 form, I think there's nothing to worry about. Don't worry about a right back or a midfielder missing. Don't worry about that. You've got Che Adams and you've got Stuart Armstrong. Problem solved.
We don't need Russell Martin in the setup. We need Tom Deacon in the setup. This positivity is more than Michael and I could ever imagine on a Tuesday morning. You mentioned Che Adams there. Let's talk about him. What sort of form is he in, Tom?
To be honest, if you ask a lot of Southampton fans, we love Shea Adams. You know, when he first scored his first goal for Southampton, it took quite a long time. I'm looking at the stats of his international career with Scotland. He doesn't seem to score enough goals. I think goals are going to be a problem. However, we love him. We love him for the fact that he is our proper striker. We play one in the middle, two out wide, whether it's Ryan Fraser or David Brooks and Adam Armstrong on the other side. We love him. He should be the first name in the team. What he adds in, just the tenacity, his ability, his speed, and his physicality in a game. He's the number one sort of striker that we have at the moment. Ross Stewart, the Loch Ness Drogba, is unfortunately injured, so he's out. So Shea Adams is really our number one guy to go to. Whether he gets the goals is a different matter, but what he gives in effort, Southampton fans absolutely love.
You mentioned that Shea Adams may be one of the first names on the team sheet. Stuart Armstrong isn't always on the starting team sheet. What sort of season is he having?
Fantastic. Again, when you're fighting to get those 2 automatic promotion spots, you need players that just have that ability to just whether it's the pass, link up play, or just that ability to just unlock an opposition team. Stewie has that, as he's known, Stewie. And the link up play with him and Shea Adams as well is one that we love to watch. Whether, and I don't know if people know this, whether he sees out a full 90 minutes is the only consideration for him. And I know that Steve Clarke uses him mainly off the bench sometimes. So I think he's a brilliant, impactful player. When you need to look for a goal or get that, Stewie Armstrong steps up. And with his experience, whether it's for Celtic, for Saints in the Premier League, he's just a class act. And interviewing him a few times, he's an absolute a gent, and I really respect him. So I can't wait to see him in the Euros.
My goodness, Michael, we don't need a right wing back or wing back or defender. We don't need anything. We only need Shea Adams and Stuart Armstrong. By the sound of this is much more positive than our drop in with Alistair. They are 2 very, very important players for Southampton, but they are also 2 very important players for Scotland, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, Steve Clarke has his favourites. You know, he picks a pretty stable team most times, but he will always find places for guys like Kenny McLean and for Stuart Armstrong. Now, Stuart Armstrong has actually played in all of Scotland's last 8 games, and as Tom said, he's normally off the bench. I think 7 of those are off the bench, but that's a manager kind of rewarding a guy who always shows up when he's picked, that there's no problems, he's not pulling out the squads. 50 caps, you know, he's been a part of the furniture, Stuart Armstrong, for Scotland for a long time. Again, he's not a starter for us in our strongest side, but he's a player who will play probably all 3 games at the Euros if he's fit. 3 games minimum, of course, 3 games minimum if we get through. And Adams, I think Adams is the first choice striker, isn't he? I mean, you know, there's debate about, you know, sometimes he goes with Dykes. Shankland's had such a strong season, but I think maybe, and this sounds incredibly harsh, but Shankland's chance in Amsterdam, you know, he needed to put that away. But I still think that Adams would have been the one that Clarke would have started against Germany with. And I still think he will.
I heard you say there that Stuart Armstrong never pulls out of squads. What a segue. Tom, Ryan Fraser hasn't been in the frame really for Scotland of late. What have you made of him since he joined Southampton? Well,
as you already know, Michael, Amy, and everyone listening, I'm a positive person. So when Ryan Fraser,
would never have guessed, Tom. Would never have guessed.
No, I genuinely, do you know what? I'm going to say this, and this is a bit of a revelation. We both go to the same coffee shop. I'm not going to go on about it any more than that, which is my claim to fame, not his. Ryan Fraser arriving at Southampton, there was a bit of trepidation, a bit of like, why have we got Ryan Fraser? He's fallen out of favour at Newcastle. And do we really want a player that apparently is disruptive force? Do we really want that? But he's been the complete opposite. He's galvanised our team. Another impactful sub that Russell Martin uses, like Steve Clarke will do with Stuart Armstrong. But he's just got speed, bravery, just goals. I mean, we just love him, and I don't know if it's allowed to be called, but he's the wee man down in Southampton. We didn't name him that, but we've adopted him into Southampton, and we want him to stay. And as a Southampton fan, watching Ryan Fraser play so well in the Championship, I just baffled why he wouldn't be a potential squad player for Scotland. Just someone who can, again, come off the bench and just turn things up, because that's what he's done in the Championship. He's had match-winning goals. I think it was at Millwall, came on, got us the win, and we absolutely love and adore him for that. So I'm just curious why he would have fallen out of favour, because we love him.
Well, Michael Grant, maybe you can offer some insight on that, or if not, we may need to just ask Steve Clarke himself. But yeah, I know you mentioned them earlier, Michael. But can you see Ryan Fraser forcing his way back into the Scotland setup?
No. No, I don't think so. I think I hate to sound the opposite of Thomas positivity, but I don't think there is a way back for Fraser with Scotland. I mean, never say never, but I think there were issues there between him and the Scotland management in terms of just commitment being questioned for Scotland and attitude. So, I mean, Clarke has never come out and said, I'm not picking Ryan Fraser again, but the evidence is there. I mean, he doesn't pick him. And we have asked him several times about it, and he kind of dances around the subject, and we read between the lines, and we know what he's telling us without saying it. I mean, the other thing I would say is we don't actually play with wide players, wide attacking players, which is a shame. I remember we beat Albania in 2018. I looked it up last night because I remember the game. Ryan Fraser scored and James Forrest scored twice, and it was really exciting. It was such a different way for Scotland to play, but it wasn't something that we kind of continued or built on. We've got our two wing backs bombing forward. Maybe, Amy, as you say, if we've got real problems at right wing back, we look at doing things differently. But I'd be very surprised if Ryan Fraser featured, I'm afraid. Sorry, Tom.
No, Michael, it's absolutely fine. And just to galvanise anybody worried about that striker partnership or who's going to be up front, Che Adams is at the end of his contract this year at Southampton, and what seems to happen, the only bugbear we have with Che Adams is he always wants to leave, apparently, if you believe every report in the paper. So actually, an opportunity to be on the shop window, he is going to be banging in goals because he'd like to get a move, I'm sure. So the Euros, look out. That's what I'll say. So if Ryan's not there, Che will be there scoring goals.
Tom, thank you for that burst of positivity. Quickly, before we go, very, very quickly, I do promise, just wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of other stories this morning. Michael, what do you make of the decision to have McDiarmid Park on standby if Dundee against Rangers on Wednesday does not go ahead at Dens Park?
Well, I can understand it. I mean, I think the SPFL's determination is just to get this game played. I mean, it's been postponed twice. There's been a big noise about it both times. I mean, I suppose the pressure's kind of reduced a little bit because we know the top six now. You could wait. And you might argue, well, why not just wait until Dens is ready? I think Dens has still got something like 4 games. I mean, I might be wrong, but I think Dens has still got to host 4 games between now and the end of the season, which seems an almighty task for it, given it's permanently unplayable as soon as we get a drop of rain. But yeah, listen, Perth's half an hour from my house, Amy, so I'm perfectly happy to go along there on Wednesday night and watch that match.
I bet you are, Michael. How very kind of the SPFL to take your arrangements into consideration. And Tom, I heard you mention earlier that you actually don't mind VAR. Wild. The SFA say that they expect whoever the new head of referees is that they will improve VAR. If you could improve it in any way, how would you do so?
When you may have overheard me say I don't mind VAR, I don't mind it in principle. However, fundamentally, it does not work, and we've all kind of seen that. There's just too much human error in it, even in the Six Nations, because every football fan says, why can rugby get it right, but we can't? I think we all saw that try against France in the Six Nations for Scotland, and even with going to the match official, and assistant referees, they still couldn't decide. So I think as football fans, we have to take the initiative and go, they're going to get it wrong. It's not a perfect system, and we just have to be. And this is from a perspective of someone who's seen their team drop down from the Premier League to the Championship where there is no VAR, and I love the football more for it because it's not stopped every 10 minutes at least to decide whether something should be overturned or not. So I think the way to improve VAR is for every football fan to accept it is rubbish and we have to just move on and just accept that there's still going to be mistakes, and let's not think for any minute that it's a perfect system.
Slightly concerned if I asked you, Michael, how would you improve VAR, that we may still be here when the Dundee Rangers game eventually takes place. So that is enough VAR chat for now. We'll leave it there for today. My many thanks go to Michael Grant, Tom Deacon and Alistair McKenzie, and thank you very much for listening. Alistair Lamont and Kevin Thompson will be here tomorrow to, among other things, look ahead to Dundee against Rangers wherever in the country it is held. Remember, we publish new episodes every weekday morning, so you can get your daily dose of Scottish football bright and early. So if you haven't done so already, just follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out. Thanks very much for listening, and bye-bye for now.
Just a quick reminder, the Behind the Goals podcast is available every Tuesday with me, Rachel Corsey, and me, Leanne Crichton. It's your one-stop shop for our take on everything that's happening in the world of football. Just head to BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts and search for Behind the Goals.